Good afternoon, Abbotsford residents. I'm Mr. Pelican. I want to say hello to all my BC Conservative friends that work so hard in Abbotsford. I'm running for the Mayor of Abbotsford. Win or lose, Abbotsford, I could care less. My number one scope is to make sure the law and the community sees of the elite ring of organized crime. This office here was once controlled by the dirtiest politician in Abbotsford history, Mike DeYoung. Mike DeYoung took his finger when he was the M.L.A. for the BC Liberals and told me and Abbotsford residents to cut a deal. Henry owns Abbotsford, knowing as a former Attorney General that Henry's son in front of him lifting the jobs, city council's up at his house rigging. Instead of my MLAs and MPs of the Conservatives standing by me and my residents, it didn't. Who came to help Abbotsford and me ensured our safety of everything that was taking place was a mission RCMP. A small detachment just outside of Abbotsford opened their hearts and opened their doors to what was taking place on Elite Ring. The RCMP knew when Mike DeYoung and Ed weren't helping you, they were in with Henry. What gave most of the RCMP the information to start the ball rolling for us Abbotsford residents and me as a politician is when they saw Henry Braun, Ed Fast, Mike DeYoung, George Perry, and John Van Doggen, the five leaders, try to get behind Mike DeYoung and get him in as the MLA. Right there, the RCMP guy on mission said, that's your problems. That is why Ed did not call out Henry's hit and run. This is why the Attorney General did not call out Henry's hit and run, lifting the job sites and Abbotsford's top police force threatening. Even on Council Mogel, they were working the back doors. Today, I stand in front of M.L.A. Corky Neufeld. Abbotsford worked very hard, the Conservatives and a lot of residents, to get rid of Mike DeYoung and the establishment. Corky Neufeld is trying to show Caroline Fielding of the BC Conservative leaders that he needs to kiss a little bit of ass. And he's going to have a fundraiser. The BC Conservatives and many people in Abbotsford have phoned me and I said, don't do it. Stop it 100% to Caroline Finley comes into Abbotsford and calls out Corky Neufeld, or picks up the phone and calls Bruce Bamman or Rianne Gasper. You know, the other day I called out Bruce Bamman on the Mackenzie Bog. Not to harm Bruce Bamman or Rianne Gasper. I kind of told Bruce I'm running for the mayor, and Rianne and everybody, I want you to sit back and let me spank them. But I also need my MLA's offices to be open, and Bruce is a very good-hearted person, and so is Rianne. So I'm going to ask Bruce again, Abbotsford, the South Asians, and everybody are asking you now to speak up. I want to tell you what Corky Neufeld did. The BC Conservatives are sliding in the polls against David Eby. That is due to this man and the MLA like Armin Bangdu. They tagged up with the Liberals in establishment. Corky Neufeld knows we unseated Mike DeYoung, and yet he goes and throws and has a party with Mike DeYoung. Simon Gibson, remember what Simon Gibson did to Pierre Poilievre? He told Pierre Poilievre's party, you need to apologize to Mike DeYoung immediately. He demanded that apology for his best friend Mike DeYoung, the Liberal, of not selecting him. And the damage they did to Conservatives. It was considered politics. Politics is not played on people's lives and residents, and that's when you got to call it out. When you're rigging job sites and whatever on taxpayers, yeah, it's still dirty, but when it gets on this level, you got to call it out. Corky Neufeld went in that party with Mike DeYoung. He went in there with Simon Gibson. He went in there with Mark Warkentine. He went in there with Jerry Palmer. He went in there with Ross Siemens to load Amric Moran at the city council and say you're going to get all the help and everything, and the police chief Colin Watson and everybody else over all the other city councils. Then he took them to Victoria and he posted them all out. Corky Neufeld also went to Canadian Tire, to the man that is running Skelly for the council, and I encourage you to vote for this man. I encourage you. And I asked him if he could help with his hot dog stand when he brings Caroline Finley in. Can you believe that low crawling mouse would do that? After what he did with Amric Moran, now he goes to the other guy that's running, and he tries to do this with no shame and embarrassment. Why are I here? I want to tell Caroline Finley, and I want her maybe to call Bruce Bamman, maybe call Rianne, or call your other MLAs. Dave Sidhu's piece of property is insider trading. He's a sitting city council of Abbotsford. He was Abbotsford First, which was Ross Siemens, Dave Sidhu, Kelly Shahal, Mark Workendine. They were all asleep. They lifted his dad's piece of property on a significant lift from David Eby to Vitalis, Vitalis was getting now a corporate welfare handout. They rigged to change the zoning and everything when there was 5,000 farmers. So let me tell you what took place. Corky Neufeld is best friends with the establishment, and that's why he was throwing their party for Amric Moran, with Amric Moran at that party, and standing by the signs and everything. It was the Abbotsford City staff in the back that leaked it. Corky Neufeld knew this was wrong, especially with Mike DeYoung. And now you can see even Brad Viss taking pictures with Mike DeYoung, Amric Moran, and Brad Viss trying to upload them. The establishment, this was about jobs, no more long. Abbotsford residents and voters could no longer walk in here and ask for the help of their MLAs and councils because they were collaborating. It was the RCMP that knew Ed and Mike have to be owning Henry, and when they flushed themselves to the top, they said that's the reason why Ed Fast is not calling out the hit and run and Mike DeYoung. They're with Henry 100%. Showing themselves and getting themselves caught. The Abbotsford Private Police were not here for the Abbotsford victims or for Abbotsford voters or for the law. It was a well-orchestrated police department controlled from the back for construction and loading elections to make sure who they could get in and threaten other candidates. Dave Sidhu's property was changed to zoning. It was rushed. It was headhunted and sold to the Vanderpoels, which is Vitalis, for a significant lift to his dad, Andy Sidhu, in order to help Ross load the election. I showed you Ross's zoning and changing on the bus terminal. Dave knew all that. And then they helped to wreck other candidates and use that newspaper and block the election. So why does this involve Corky Neufeld? Corky Neufeld has been told by Ross, the city staff told me, if you call out David Eby for lifting Dave Sidhu's piece of property on his insider trading to help Caroline Finley and scandal him, it comes back at me as the mayor and council. Then David Eby would be forced to say, okay, I wasn't involved in that, BC Conservatives. Corky Neufeld's the M.L.A. and he's standing beside Ross and them, and that's why he didn't call that out. So I will order the money back off the table on Dave Sidhu and Ross Siemens. I will order an investigation, order that back pushed under into ag culture again, into raspberries. Then I will now ask the Attorney General to push charges forward on Ross Siemens and his council for falsifying the application to the ag, to change the zoning, to help everything, and to call it an ag conglomerate company, they were going to call it, and they were going to have a co-op, and they never did any of it, and they falsified that under the charity to get the money to rig this under this ag cooperative, and they never had the quota, they never had nothing, and it was all rigged. And I'll order that investigation. Corky knew that, and I knew that. So he couldn't damage Ross, and he couldn't do that, so he threw a elaborate party. But what he didn't realize, it doesn't give Caroline Finley any leverage over David Eby. And these are the MLAs that are doing it. He's asking now, my residents and me and everybody else, Caroline Finley's coming to town to give money. Let me tell you, BC Conservatives, I'm the first one to say you're not getting any charity from me, my neighbors, my friends, or anything he's involved. To go ask Skelly to do what he did over Amric Moran, now to block that is hurting his own party. Caroline Finley needs to pick up that phone And she needs to say to the former mayor and one of her best MLAs, I think, that she ever has, in the Conservatives, and say to Bruce Bamman, is that true on Dave Sidhu's property? And is he a sitting council? And is this why my MLA is not calling it out Corky Neufeld? Bruce only could come to the same answer and say, Mr. Pelican's podcast is 100%. The city insiders have told him, and this is why Mr. Pelican's been heavily threatened by the Abbotsford police and been chased, because an establishment went in for job sites and there was no MLAs and no MPs. Caroline Finley needs to unload him, because I'm going to tell Caroline Finley right here, and so David Eby can hit it. I'm going to work with Abbotsford residents to unseat Corky Neufeld, with the South Asians to unseat Corky Neufeld. He knows what Joe has happened on Short Road, all the South Asians, the farmers and blueberry farmers, and he couldn't call out Dave Sidhu because he was at the party to endorse Amric Moran, help Amric Moran, and he knew all the cheating, and he was hanging with Mike de Jong. Abbotsford worked to make sure Mike de Jong was unseated and out of here for what he did. And this man went and tagged himself. He hasn't apologized to the other councillors that are running for taking Amric Moran to Victoria and trying to get him leverage. Now the party with Simon Gibson, Mark Warkentine, Jerry Palmer, Mike de Jong, and all the people there behind the back to load him. And this is what he's done and why he did it, because Ross Siemens would say, Corky, if you call out Dave Sidhu's property to hurt the NDP that they did insider trading, because that's what it looks like. David Eby took a brown envelope and Barrowtown's money, and David Eby knew that was city council, and he was a lawyer, and he was doing that insider trading. It comes back at me. And David Eby then has to stand up and say, no, they filed the application wrong. They used charity money. They used an ag cooperative, and they changed the zoning from that cooperative to make sure it was put on ag land so they didn't pay commercial, and everything was illegal. Take it all off the table, plus the province can step in to charge. So now the question Caroline Finley's got to come with is, did David Eby get a brown envelope to rig them jobs, because everybody's a human being, right? And Barrowtown money's missing, or was my MLA not doing my work? Your MLA wasn't doing your work. You need to gain ground on David Eby. And voters are showing you, and farmers are showing you, and everybody's showing you, and I'm running for mayor. How do you think I learned that information? That information comes firsthand from my voters, people that are in offices and saw the rigging. And an elite establishment was trying to own Abbotsford. I told them then, and I'll tell you now, Henry Brown's going to take you all down. You do not cover an attempted murder. The top of the Abbotsford police are in a massive mess. Ed Fast is in a massive mess. Mike de Jong's in a massive mess. So they figure if they can go Hutter in a private party and try to still hang on and grab. This is why Corky Neufeld's getting beat up. And I'm going to tell Corky Neufeld, I want all my South Asians to see this. Every one of them. So when you knock on that door for charity money, they say, Corky, you know, you're well handsomely paid as an MLA. Take your own money and do the fundraiser and then give people for free so you don't look embarrassed. But right now, I'm asking Bruce Bamman to stay out of the fundraiser. I'm asking Rianne Gasper to stay out of the fundraiser. I'm asking the EDA of Souk Mangels, all my BC Conservatives, I'm out. No fundraiser for Caroline Finley. Caroline Finley has got to open that door on that MLA, and she's got to take a ride over to Tracy Road and look at that piece of property, and then she'll know that that's Dave Sidhu's. Corky, you were doing this and you didn't hurt the NDP, because this would have drove a stake right between David Eby's eyes, because it looks like David Eby now, with the Barrowtown waterwork money missing, the Ag Center for $500 million missing, the insider now trading to Vitalis on farmland. He set that up, that you could create that ag cooperative, and Vanderpool's didn't have it. And now it looks like David Eby was doing this against all the farmers, and it was preferential treatment to only friends that Henry Brown needed to rig decisions on city councils. I want to tell you one more time before I end. Instead of my MLAs and MPs standing beside Abbotsford resident, the best in the world came to help. Get me free clearance now to speak anywhere and everything is the RCMP emission. When they learned that I knew from major developers from Wall Financial, Aquilini, Mike Dakota, that Henry was embezzling the city taxpayers' money and rigging jobs. A mob that had private police, and this is why Surrey's mayor is so scared of private police, because he can set it up from the back. No one looks away from the attempted murder. Ladies and gentlemen, BC Conservatives and Abbotsford voters, starting tomorrow night, I'm going to hold people on my podcast, and they're going to be now, thanks to the RCMP, the eyewitnesses that witnessed everything that I went through, the sexual assault and allegations by Abbotsford First, Ross Siemens' team, so his wife and family can see that, and they're going to be front and center. And we owe that to the RCMP emission, not the Abbotsford junk. And we're going to go all the way as voters and as residents, all the way to get that law. And I want to end this story by saying this. Corky, an Abbotsford judge told me in Abbotsford homeowners, no one's above the law, no one can use the law, and no one thinks of the end. No one thinks of the end. Hanging with Mike DeYoung really pissed Abbotsford residents right off. Doing that with Amric Moran has really pissed Abbotsford residents right off when there's other councils running. Covering up Dave Sidhu's insider trading when the South Asians are hurting, and lifted his land when Dave Sidhu was doing what he was, and he was Ross's buddy. And this is why you blocked it from your leader to getting ground on David Eby, and helped because you were doing damage control for Ross Siemens because it was scandalous. I'm live. Corky Newfield, Abbotsford, British Columbia.